The North American region has not had the best track record when it comes to esports as a whole, destined to always give a subpar performance when it comes to the international stage. But one of the few players that transcended this curse was Tarik. Being part of the famous Cloud9 roster that made a Cinderella run to win North America's first and currently only major tournament win in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Tarik is easily one of the greatest FPS gamers to ever exist. I know many of you may not have followed CSGO before playing Valorant though, so I'll try to keep this section brief. Tarik has had an extended pro career through the entire history of CSGO, while maintaining a successful live stream displaying his best and worst moments. Recently, he has been grinding Valorant, proving to everyone that he is capable of being one of the best players in not only CSGO, but also in Valorant. With an accomplishment like this, we wanted to take a deeper look into how this tenured CSGO pro was able to make the transition to Valorant so seamlessly. I set aside some time to watch his matches live on Twitch in hopes of figuring out what standout traits Tarik has that you could apply to your own gameplay. Something worth bringing up before we dive deeper into analyzing his gameplay is his agent pool. If we take a quick trip to his Valorant ranked stats for this current act, you'll notice that the large majority of his games played are on Jett, followed by Chamber and Reyna. Take a moment to guess what these three agents have in common. They are all potent opping agents. These three agents are in a tier of their own when it comes to abusing the strengths that comes with the high-cost sniper. Watch Tarik stream for only a few moments and you'll see him buy this costly weapon whenever he can. The op can dictate the pacing at which everyone in the server has to play at. Just an ounce of carelessness when peeking can be the freest kill if all they have to do is just hit you once in your body. Pair this with the agents that can use instant reposition abilities to maneuver in between op shots, and you have the potential to carry literally any team if you're playing clean. Obviously though, such power does come with a cost, specifically 4,700 credits, making it the most expensive gun in the game. With a price tag like that, getting to use the gun for only 1 or 2 rounds before you lose it, or worse if the enemy team steals it, makes the risk too high for such small returns. In spite of this, Tarik gladly fills the opera role in almost all of his ranked games. The combination of clean fundamentals, boisterous confidence, and an op will result in having the most potential impact on the game no matter what circumstances you may be in. Since Tarik does op in most of his games, some of these tips will be op specific, but we did make sure to have a couple more general ones to balance it out. But before we get deep into the analysis, I did want to mention if you're looking to play games at the top level, maybe even getting into matches with Tarik yourself, it's not always enough to just see how he plays. You also need to know the best practices that players like him followed to get to where they are today. That's why we've created our Fast Track Academy course over on the website, with the intentions of taking you from whatever rank you may be at and bringing you up to speed on everything you need to know. This is also backed by our rank improvement guarantee, so if you don't find the improvement you're looking for, it's literally no risk. That being said, we put a lot of effort into making sure the website is up to date with all of the best educational content for you, so if you're really looking to improve, I highly recommend checking out SkillCapped.com. Let's get back into looking at Tarik though. As we mentioned earlier, the op is a huge investment, so mitigating the risk of losing the weapon early is ideal. We want our op to live a long and healthy life where we're able to use it for multiple rounds while still supporting our team. A prime way to achieve this goal is by holding a narrow angle that simultaneously supports your teammates as they scale into a bomb site. For those who are unaware, scaling is a term to describe when people are pushing forward to take space. This mostly pertains to when the attackers are executing on a bomb site or when defenders are retaking. To give a better understanding of this concept, let's take a look at this clip of Tarik on Icebox. Even though this clip shows Tarik using a Marshall, the same principle still applies. We start with Tarik playing top pipes, looking for any picks that the enemies may give him, but is swiftly deterred by the enemy jet's smoke. With his line of sight being cut off from the cloudburst, he chooses to drop down from pipes. This is when he opts to peek the right side of rafters and backside. As this happens, his teammates, Raze and Sage, choose to scale a bit by pushing towards Maze and bottom 410 respectively. From this point, I want you to try and place yourself into the shoes of the Sage and think about what angles are potential threats if you were to scale into A site. A common path that attackers will use to scale is pushing on the right side of 410, clearing the close right angle, followed by clearing the back side of 410 or generator. Unfortunately, this does come with a weakness. If a defender chose to peek from backside or from rafters, there's a high chance they would see you scaling into the site with your head turned to the side, making it an almost unlosable duel for them as long as they don't whiff their shot. Most decent players understand this is a strong option to choose as a defender, so they will purposely peek and unpeek from positions such as this one, knowing that they may be able to find a timing when you're occupied clearing other angles that leave you vulnerable from where they're located. But if you have a teammate that's holding these types of angles for you as you scale, they can kill them before they're able to kill you, or at least guarantee a trade frag in most situations. Holding these types of angles are where the op shines, allowing your teammates to scale without feeling that fear they may getting peeked at an unlucky timing, while also letting yourself play further back where the risk of losing the op is much lower. You can apply this concept to the other guns, but the op stands as king of holding angles since all you have to do is hit one bullet into their torso. The game literally becomes a point-and-click adventure game. If we let the clip play out, we can see that the enemy's utility was a bit too much to push through, so they decide to fall back. Even if this didn't lead to anything meaningful, it still shows how holding supportive angles for your teammates can help them feel more at ease as they scale. But later on in this same exact Icebox game, Tarik's team go for a B-site hit. Tarik peeks towards yellow and holds for a brief moment before moving on to holding the left side of the B main corridor. Just as his Raze moves into scale with the Sova drone and Boombot, the enemy jet peaks and is quickly traded after he hits an op shot onto his Sage. This is a perfect example of what we just went over. Tarik holds the long angle with his op as the rest of his teammates clear the close angles with either their bodies or with their utilities such as the Sova drone. As an opper, minimizing risk while maximizing impact is the name of the game, and this technique encapsulates this mantra to a T. With the op being such an oppressive weapon to face, many teams opt to deal with it by moving to a completely different side of the map once they've located where it is. This is a very basic but effective strategy at maneuvering your way around the op during a match. But once you face an opper that is cognizant of this option, they'll make your life much harder by repositioning where they station the op in order to keep themselves unpredictable. Tarik has plenty of tactical FPS experience under his belt, so he makes use of this move quite often. To showcase this idea in more tangible forms, let's take a look at Tarik's starting positions during this Icebox game. After taking a few losses at the start of the match, Tarik is able to save up for his first op purchase on the 5th round. This being his first op round of the game, he goes for one of the longest angles that Icebox has to offer, peeking the B main barrier from as far back as he possibly can. He even jumps onto this box in the corner to give himself a bit more height to peek over the metal crate, as well as having a better off angle. Sadly, the enemy jet is aware of this option and jiggle peeks the corner, which buys the Owl drone enough time to spot Tarik's position. This leads to Viper placing her toxic screen to block the Tarik's line of sight, allowing the enemies to cross under green. Tarik does not find any initial kills from this spot and is forced to fall back. However, if we skip over to the start of the next round, we can see that Tarik has now gone for a much closer angle that peeks into garage. Obviously, this angle is much riskier because of how close you are to the enemies, but as we discussed earlier, the toxic screen does block Tarik's view of the green cross if he chooses to hold from all the way near yellow. The reason why this could be deadly for an opper who holds from farther back is because of the layout of B main, you kinda have to choose to either hold the right side or the left side of B main exclusively, allowing the enemies an opportunity to lurk through the Viper wall and catch you off guard while you are obligated to hold one of these sides. With this pushed up angle, Tarik gives himself a chance at maybe finding a pick onto a person peeking from garage before the screen goes up. More importantly, he's able to hold both sides of the toxic screen lurk by only holding a single line of sight. If the enemies were to walk out either side of green, Tarik's crosshair placement covers both routes with minimal adjustment needed. He even mentions how he's sensing that there might be a lurk as he's holding.
I can sense a lurk.
I can jump spot mid.
As the round continues, Tarik keeps holding this position until he feels comfortable enough rotating towards A site. Even though these two clips did not display any kills for Tarik, the thought process of his decision making is what you should take away. It may not be the flashiest gameplay, but having a plan around how you will be positioning at the start of every round is crucial to keeping your opponents on their toes. Mastering the process rather than focusing on the reward will lead to sustained growth over the long term, rather than trying to find gimmicks that have a short lifespan. Enough talk on how to start a round, let's break down one of Tarik's highlight clips to explain how mid-round repositioning has massive benefits. If we resume the clip we saw earlier, where Tarik was forced to back away from yellow, we can see he moves all the way under bridge. At the very moment he updrafts onto bridge, his teammate dies in kitchen to the enemy Viper. With one of the most perfectly timed repositions, Tarik peeks hall to get the trade frag and swiftly drops from bridge. The thought process behind this movement is that it's safe to assume the enemy Viper will communicate to his team that the opper is on bridge. Even if he doesn't comm this to his team, the teammates gain the info from the minimap and sound cues, but it still takes time to process this positional information while attempting to scale into B-site. Tarik abuses this fact by dropping and peeking from the bottom side and finding a simple frag onto the jet. During that small timing window where the enemies are considering Tarik's positioning to be at bridge, he's already peeking them from an entirely different angle. After reloading his op, Tarik peeks from the right side of B-site and finishes the raise to close out this cleanly played round. This clip exhibits the strengths that come with repositioning, punishing people when they are still processing positional information or lack thereof. And with a weapon such as the op, the smallest opening can lead to huge prizes. If you love to play initiators, you should be quite familiar with the concept of gaining information, whether it be Psyche's dog or Sova's owl drone. These abilities give you a low-risk way to control a minion to push through risky areas of the map to figure out where enemies could be located. The essence of these abilities are the same as how duelists gain information, but instead of using an ability, they use their own body to do it. When playing Jet or other duelists, you should find yourself being in front of your teammates where you're able to peek angles to gain info so you or your team can make better decisions. When Tarik doesn't have the luxury to use an op and has to settle for a rifle, he still has a major impact on the game by following this principle. Let's use this round from a split game as an example. The round starts with Tarik quietly clearing garage as he makes his way closer to B-site. He pauses, then begins to peek the rest of the B-site angles that are able to peer into garage. Clearing these initial angles gives his teammates the assurance to continue walking behind him as they encroach the bomb site itself. A couple footsteps are made from the enemy team, and this is Tarik's sign to slam his foot on the pedal by pushing out and hoping to catch the defenders by surprise. This works perfectly, causing Raze to be headshot as he's occupied with Mail. A fast dash to pass the double stack lands Tarik right next to the Astra in B site, ultimately leading to his death here. But soon after dying, Tarik communicates to his team the Astra's location and his remaining health. With Tarik's team situated in a 4v3 with the B site cleared, they go on to win out this round. There are two key ideas to highlight from Tarik's gameplay. First, being the player to peek all of the early B site angles. If you have enough confidence in yourself, many of these starting duels can easily lead to a man advantage if you hit the shots you need. But the main reason behind this being an effective strategy is not the potential duels, but rather the power to clear these angles to allow your teammates to join you in holding these positions without feeling the danger of being the first one to peek into the unknown. Second, dashing deeper into B site to find the Astra's location while getting some chip damage as well. The speed at which Tarik pushes into the site causes the Astra to panic a bit, resulting in Tarik getting 80 damage onto her before falling. Still, this 80 damage was not the exact reasoning this play was a great one. It was the speed at which he was able to find the Astra's location relative to his teammates' positioning. Tarik acts like a Sova drone, pushing forward to find where the enemies are so that his teammates are able to use the information he's gained to get a trade frag on the Astra. Duelists are essentially Sova drones that have the capability to kill people on their own. Something worth mentioning though is that not every round are you able to just hold W and push into a bomb site due to external circumstances such as your teammates' positioning or the enemy's utility. So to focus on this fundamental during these types of scenarios, how about we move on to another split clip? This time, Tarik and his team group up mid. They're met with a Reyna flash, Sage wall, and an Astra star. Tarik knows that this Sage has been peeking from the top of his wall, so he slowly paths up the right side of mid while holding the top of the Sage wall if she did peek. On top of holding the Sage peek, he also moves in a way to see if she may be hiding on top of the wall, getting ready for a peek which can catch the Sage if she's not aware of her positioning. Once the wall is broken and Raze nades Mail, he safely backs up to reload. As soon as he stands up, Sage presents herself in Mail and Tarik finds a clean headshot. What we can take away from this round is how Tarik was aware of what peaks he needed to gain information on so that his team could feel at ease to do whatever they needed to do to pressure mid. The first example is when Tarik walks up the right side of mid while holding for a peek from the top of the wall. A common situation that occurs is when your team is attempting to break the Sage wall is that the enemies will peek as soon as they start to hear you shoot it. This causes the Sage to have an easier duel since your crosshair placement is focused on the wall rather than being placed on where the Sage will peek from. In addition, Tarik's pathing makes it so if the Sage were hiding at the top of her wall, he would be able to see her much earlier. The second example is where Tarik fell back after breaking the wall. Gaining information doesn't have to always be peeking into angles, but rather holding angles you already have, especially if the enemies have utility that can hard stop you from taking up more space. If Tarik had chosen to be a bit greedy here, he could have easily been stopped by an Astra suck, a Sage slow, or even a Reyna flash since these are all immediate threats. Maintaining what information they had gave Tarik a free kill onto the Sage, who chose to peek out since she felt uneasy that they weren't peeking her while she was in these safer angles. Sometimes establishing control over the angles you currently have to maintain a steady flow of the information is more desirable than pushing your luck. At the end of the day, Valorant is a game that's won off of capitalizing on the mistakes your enemies make. One of the obvious ones being their deaths. But not all players are capable of fully punishing the team when they are given these opportunities. A simplified way to break this thought process down is by asking yourself this question whenever one of the opponents dies. Should I push forward immediately, or should I wait and slow it down? Each scenario will have different context clues to them, which aid in deducing what course of action you should follow. Let's move over to Tarik's stream to get some study material on how to learn this ourselves. In the first moments of the round, Tarik peeks mid, looking for a pick onto the boiler player. With no luck, he begins to shift back to spawn, finding a kill onto the Sova holding from under tube. During all of this, he communicates to his team they are likely rotating to B because of the nature of Jet's jump peek from boiler. Jump peeking from boiler as you rotate from one site to another is a common tactic used by many players since it allows you to soft clear mid without having to slow down to delay your rotation. With this in mind, Tarik and his team decide to fall back and go for A site. As they begin their push into the building, Tarik calls out that the enemies may be pushed up. Right after this, they find the Viper hiding in A main, where she finds a frag onto his teammate, but is immediately traded from Tarik. This kill is followed by Tarik dashing onto A site, showing some nice movement to push onto rafters to find another frag onto the Sage. Tarik here is displaying an incredible understanding of how the enemy team is moving throughout the map by taking advantage of the space the enemy team has given them, based on how the Jet jump peeked boiler. If he were to play with this assumption in mind, he may come to the conclusion that the enemy A site anchor may be pushed up further into A main rather than playing on the site itself. The reasoning behind this is that a common strategy that many teams will use is to have one of your bomb site anchors push out to gain information as early as possible. This allows the rest of his team to stack other areas of the map, because if they do choose to go to the pushed up player's bomb site, they should be able to relay that information early enough based on their positioning that their teammates should have more time to rotate to them before they reach the bomb site. This assumption from Tarik was spot on, and they find an easy trade onto the Viper. But what the enemies did not calculate into their plan is the speed at which Tarik was able to push into A site with his dash, giving him an empty bomb site to work with. It's clear that playing an agent with the dash makes this action a lot easier to achieve, but it's how Tarik was able to get to the decision by thinking out the round logically that gave him this chance in the first place. How about we move on over to a match on Ascent? Tarik and friends use their utility to gain control of mid. As they approach Catwalk, his Astra kills the enemy Astra in A main. Shortly after, the Killjoy takes out his teammate. Noticing Killjoy's positioned in Wine, Tarik floors it by dashing through Tree. This proactive play gives Tarik an ideal duel onto the Killjoy, which he wins with ease. Similar to the last round, Tarik is using the default positioning precedent that many players follow in order to make educated guesses on where he can push. That precedent being that most defenders will have a setup where they'll have 2 B players, 1 mid, and 2 A players, with the first A defender being taken out from his teammate and finding the Killjoy in Wine. Essentially, the locations of the 2 A players have been identified. This gives Tarik a mental image of how A site is being played by the defenders, which gives him an avenue to push through Tree because he knows it's unlikely there's another player in A site itself. Plays like these are what lead to consistent improvement in your own gameplay. Using bits and pieces of information the enemies are giving and processing it through your game sense is an invaluable skill to have as a Valorant player. But hey, if you're really looking for valuable skills to build up in Valorant, then man, have we got you covered. Over on SkillCapped.com, we have tons of courses dedicated specifically to helping you become a better player. Want to learn all the best practices for gripping your mouse? We've got you covered. Maybe you want to learn how to work all of the maps to your advantage, just as Tarik does. We've got that too. You see, the YouTube is really just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to SkillCapped. Over on the website is where we keep all the good stuff. For example, if you wanted to see what it looks like to have a Radiant coach walk actual silver players through how to improve the game, we've done all of that multiple times. So, what are you waiting for? Head on over to SkillCapped.com and get started on your journey today. That's going to do it for us here today, though. As always, we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.